Ah yes, the wonderful yet inducing Sanghelli. Halo just wouldn't be the same without our split-lip friends bossing around some pathetic grunts, tactfully operating with jackals and slicing some filthy flood into the ground. There's also no denying that they are an intimidating force to be reckoned with, especially when fighting against them on higher difficulties. But in recent years, the elites haven't been shown as much love as they once did in the past. In Halo 2, Bungie for the first time gave you the ability to play as them in the multiplayer suite, but with such a change came a mixture of opinions from fans. It paved the way for new machinima possibilities, but also caused a bit of contention with the competitive communities. But in this video, we're going to let you decide, should playable elites be present in Halo Infinite? But I don't want your opinion right now. What I want you to do, give it at the end of the video, because there's so many elements that make a bigger picture than you might initially think with this one.
Ultimate Halo.
What's going on guys, Fletch here from Ultimate Halo. Please drop a like and subscribe and make sure you comment below, and you may as well just follow me on Twitter at FletchUH. It helps the channel out a lot if you like the video, and it really does help spark some conversation within the community. So we're going over a few topics in today's video: elites in ranked play, machinima, how customizing them may work, how they will be implemented, and is it worth 343's investment, and lastly, is now a better time than any when you look at it, and we'll explain the reasons why for that later. First of all, let's dive into where this all began. Halo 2 released in 2004 and fans loved the idea as being able to play as the elites. It soon became a popular option, machinimas were starting to expand, and the possibilities in terms of characters and stories evolved. You could only change your colours, much like how we discussed in our last armour customization video, but it was a huge step for starting to personalise your own character. In Halo 3, you got much of the same, but now you can choose different variations of your own elite, furthering what the player can do. Halo Reach, well, it keeps going, to be quite honest with you. Even though it wasn't a drastic amount of variation compared to Halo 3 and the other armors that are available if you are choosing a Spartan, they were still different enough from each other to make the player unique. As well as this, they cleverly introduced the game type Invasion, which was Spartan versus elites in an epic battle to push the enemy back to steal their core, whilst the elites did their best to push you back. Then 2012 rolls around and then the elites are nowhere in sight. The fanbase seems a bit torn, not just for playable elites, of course there are genuine other factors, but others were outright furious that this was not an addition in Halo 4. I was never in the latter spectrum, to be quite truthful, but I can understand people's frustration. It really had become a key part of the multiplayer roster for years. Why would they remove it now? Well, one of the elements I do want to talk about on this front is pretty huge in terms of the gameplay of Halo. Oh, by the way, Halo 2 Anniversary did have elites, and that was pretty cool as well. Anywho, ranked play. Yes, so we'll address the main factor in all of this, which first and foremost is the hitboxes. Elites are not the same physical build to Spartans, and their anatomy determines where they can and cannot be shot. It just so happens that elites have more hunched over, more horizontally aligned necks, and that makes them more of a difficult target to hit, especially from behind when aiming at the head. And this is one of the key reasons why true competitive Halo is never allowing you to play as them. Another key thing to consider in the ranked and competitive realm is that the designs and the art style of the elites had changed a lot since 343 Industries took charge of the franchise. They were all of a sudden more of a physical presence, and this could have also been down to the lack of brutes, as the Storm Covenant didn't really seem to utilise them. As such, they now seem much taller, straighter spines, compared to more of the Bungie era elites, meaning that the time they spent redesigning them just specifically for the multiplayer suite was not really a viable option, and it would have been quite jarring for the player to see two different versions in two separate environments, and as well as that, during the development process it would also take up more resources which could be spent elsewhere. Also, outside of the balancing elements of Halo's multiplayer, 343 Industries wanted to bring more lore elements into the matchmaking system and advertised this as you being part of a simulation called Wargames, where Spartans would play out certain scenarios for training purposes, and also playing as an elite didn't particularly fit into the circumstance. So to summarise, you are taller as an elite, more vulnerable, harder to hit in the head, and the justification lore-wise from the studio is that you're a different subspecies of the Sanghelli as opposed to anything else you've seen in the past. Hold up, Mr. Negative. I've talked a lot about the negative elements, and I know it's definitely something we should cover, and we need to make sure that all balances and sides of the spectrum are covered, but what genuinely are the positives about having elites in the Halo multiplayer roster? Well, I'm actually quite pleased to say there are plenty. Like I said previously, machinima is a huge thing for the Halo community, and some of Halo's most popular videos are actually machinimas. Alright, yes, I'll agree, we don't really see that many elites in Red vs Blue, but you know, it still shows the power that these community creations have, and the more tools that there are in Halo, the better, if you ask me. Screenshotters have also made some of the most incredible in-game pieces I've ever seen from the elites. I mean, look at this piece in Halo 3. Pieces like this have been huge hundreds of thousands, if not viewed millions of times, so it does go back to that saying previously, the more tools, the better. Another use of them, which in my opinion, I actually believe this is one of the best examples of them being utilised in the entire franchise, and that was the game type invasion in Halo Reach. So I know I already have gone over that briefly and I've glossed over it, but one of my main points in this, because it's sort of asymmetrical in terms of the game type, they don't need to be as balanced as an arena would be. Of course, there are obstacles in the environments and the sandbox to negate any differences between the player hitboxes and the abilities that they did have, so I think there is a genuine place for that going forward. So now we're going to assume that playable elites are going to be a thing in Halo Infinite, and we need to simply focus on one question: how would 343 Industries implement them? Well, it's an excellent question, my friend, and it's not always an easy one, it's not that straightforward. I'm going to put forward my proposal, and in the comment section I want you to please do the same, but at the same time I also want it to be fair and realistic to the studio, because it's not exactly a small change. Things like this are not particularly easy. The first step I would take is having them redesigned, or at least by going back to the more classic design in my opinion, which is more desirable, and they're built more similarly to Spartans for balancing purposes. Having them in social game types for me personally is fine. I know the balancing elements still do exist, and I think it's essential in my book to have some level of balance, but of course it may be very different for everybody else. Custom games, that is a big, fat, massive, bloody yes. I think custom games are going to be absolutely insane for Halo Infinite, because Halo 5 we had so many new tools to play with, and now it's clear that 343 are making a genuine investment to the technology and the engine in Halo Infinite with the Slipspace engine, so who knows what the possibilities are going to be. And with that said, Playable Elites will just simply diversify the sandbox even more than they already do, and I think it will be a really good time to bring in more asymmetrical game types in the future, so there's more variety in terms of the game types. Then lastly, I would say add them to a Warzone game type variant. I believe that Warzone in its current form really does need as much balance as possible, and I think Playable Elites would not aid this as such, but I'm a strong believer that Warzone Assault would not go amiss in this realm due to its similarities with Halo Reach's Invasion. In terms of the replay value for me, it also increases this drastically, because each game I get to feel like a different experience is happening from each opposite side of the spectrum. And another implementation of this is the customization side of things. I did another separate video on Halo Infinite's armor and unlock system in my last video, but in terms of what I would like to see, I would like to be able to individually customize each element from my shoulders to my arms to my helmet, and other areas such as my visor color if it's applicable that Elite has a certain visor, and maybe also what voices I would like to see. So is it going to be the Arbiter, classic Halo 1 Elites with stupid noises like this, or more of the more modern iterations which are a little bit more deeper and a bit more brutish, I guess you could say. At this stage I would say go wild in the comment section, but I do also want you guys to be realistic. I want you to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and timely in terms of how you think they'll be implemented. So smart. Thanks Jesse. It's not that simple to just make something work in a game. There are countless hours of concepts, design, modelling, animating, testing, balancing and countless other processes involved to make these small, what seem like small things to the outside world just work. But but overall in my opinion it's something I would really like to see come back. I think there's a lot of creativity that the fans would be able to bring to the table in practically most elements of Halo, and like I did say previously, I'm a big believer that the more choice the better. So let me know in the comment section whether you think there is a demand or not. How can this be utilised, and is it actually worth 343's time and money to implement such a thing in Halo Infinite when we know there's so much demand on the table? Once again, my name is Fletch. You can follow me on Twitter, and I will see you next time on the one and the only Ultimate Halo.
Subscribe now to Ultimate Halo for more unfriggin' believable Halo content.